long-awaited review of episode 5 of season 3, Kissed by Fire. Alright, so first off, we're gonna start off with the biggest what the fuck piece of this episode, which is what happens on Team Dragonstone. What the hell is going on with these characters? Why is Stannis' life so crazy? I mean, first we meet his wife, whose name I cannot remember. I apologize, it's extremely unprofessional, but I have been up for a long time today, so I don't know. But we met his wife, and she has stillborn babies in these huge clone looking tube things just sitting there, and I just can't help but think, but like, why is this necessary? Like, okay, we already know that like Stannis has no sons, and then he goes to his wife and she's like, yeah, the Lady Melisandre told me what happened, it's totally fine, now you have a son. No, you don't. A shadow baby cannot inherit the throne. A shadow baby is not legitimate. Like, it would be a bastard. It wouldn't even be able to inherit anything. What do you mean it's a son? It's such a weird, wonky way of telling the story. Like, the whole thing, as soon as they made it so that, you know, Melisandre was like, you have nothing. You have no son. And it was like, what? And so they had to backtrack. And so now we get introduced to Shireen, who is adorable. Shireen Baratheon, who has a condition known as grayscale. That's why the side of her face was the way it was. And she was just adorable. Like, I looked at her face and was just like, and she meets her father, and she's like in this weird cell for some reason. And I mean, well, let me give some background on grayscale. Grayscale is kind of like a Westerosi extreme chicken pox, where it's contagious, but I think at the stage that Shireen has it, it's not as bad. And she's a princess, for God's sakes. Why would she just be in this weird dungeon like thing? And it was just kind of awkward to see. But the scene with her and Stannis was very well done. It was more in character for Stannis, even though the situation is a lot different from what we usually would have gotten. And this scene was, of course, made up because Stannis doesn't have a point of view, so it couldn't have happened that way. And I love how Stannis first comes in and is like, I have wronged you, my wife. I feel bad for you. And she's like, ah, nah, it's okay, fuck it. You know, it's for the Lord, it's for Jesus, well, Rolor, so it's all good. But Shireen was adorable, and she asks about the Onion Knight because they're friends, and Stannis tells her that he's a traitor and that he is being held in a dungeon. And then she goes to visit him and talks about how, you know, she brings him these books because she doesn't want him to be bored and everything, and he can't read because he was never learned. She said that she's gonna teach him. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, my favorite book and movie of all time is Little Princess, and the actor who plays Davos, the Iron Knight, he was the father in A Little Princess. So this entire scene was giving me Little Princess feels, and it just was a very emotional experience for me. But I love just how, like, Shireen was like, well, if the kids, what are we gonna do, put us in ourselves? You know, she was just so cute and, like, ready to go out there and just brave in her own way. The fact that she would just go disobey her father and, you know, help Davos because that was her friend, that's what she thought was the right thing to do. It was just a really sweet and telling scene about who she was and what her values were. With just a little bit of screen time. And it was really heartfelt in a show that can sometimes be very dark and grim about, you know, just two friends hanging out, teaching the other to read. It was just very sweet and very kind. I feel like that at least made me feel better about Dragonstone, because that scene with, like, the babies is just gonna haunt me to the end of time. I don't know why they had decided to make Stannis and his entire relationship with his wife and Melisandre so much more extreme than it actually is, because all it really does is make people hate Stannis. I mean, other than the fact that the best adaptation change they made for Stannis was, one, hottie actor, because, yes, babe, and then two, is having him actually fight directly in Blackwater than just waiting in the back. And so those are the two best changes that they made for Stannis. Everything else just been very awkward and just very OOC. I mean, I still like Stannis. He's still one of my favorite characters. I still feel a lot for him, but I also feel like they just haven't done a good justice with his character as a whole. Then we get to Beyond the Wall, where Jon is asked about how many men are guarding the... Wait, did that happen last episode? didn't. Okay. So this episode, they asked Jon about how many men are guarding the wall, and Jon says about 1,000, and they don't really believe him. One of them doesn't believe him, but the cute Giant's Bane does say that he likes Jon, but if he is lying to him, he's gonna pull out his guts through his throat. Ava Drogo, by the way. Ah, Drogo is here. Can he sit on my shoulder? No, he can't. He goes down there. All right, sorry. And so after that, we get a little bit of Lord's Kiss, which is basically Jon going down on Ygritte. It was okay. I mean, like, I'm all for cunnilingus and whatnot, but it was like over in like 2 seconds, and it just kind of felt like, okay. I mean, I know that in the books that Jon was dressed for a long period while this is going on. I'm like, can we at least get some ass, a little bit of penis up in this hole? Like, come on, guys, come on. I mean, first thing we just see Ygritte just like done, and you know, Jon standing there with all his robes on, just looking all awkward and virgin-like, and I'm just like, can we, you know, get a little bit of something for the ladies here? I mean, I can admire Ygritte's body, I mean, but she's not really my thing. But I'm just like, she's too thin for my taste. But I'm just like, okay, I guess I can appreciate her aesthetically because she is still a beautiful woman. Like, can I get some dick? A little bit of dick? Okay, fine, no dick today. And then we move on to, we get like seeing them bantering. Ygritte talks about all the men she's been with, and Jon's like, okay, whoa, didn't ask for your whole sexual history, just want to know if you had been with anyone before me. I guess the answer is yes. Thanks a lot, bye. So that moves on, good, because the less Jons know, the happier I am. And then we get off to the Riverland area, and first we start off with the trial by combat battle between Beric and Sandor. I did not hate the fighting scene, but I felt like they didn't really show as well as they could have the fear that Sandor was going through. I feel like one of the issues I have with the Hound's characterization is that he's very hyper-masculinized in the show, and while he is still a very, you know, ferocious character, he's also very emotional, and they've cut out a lot of scenes of him being emotional and really being traumatized, because after the fight, he's, you know, white-faced and he's panicked, and, you know, a lot of time during the actual fight scene, he's like completely distraught because of, you know, the fire coming up to him. And I feel like that out to make him seem like stronger, more powerful, like grr. But I also feel, just like I talk about women and gender stuff, that men also could use to show that, you know, men can be strong, but they can also have legitimate and really strong, solid fear. And I kind of wish they had shown more of that. But other than that, just a little nitpickiness, I thought the fight scene was really engaging. And then when the final swing came from Sandor, I was like, oh shit. And then immediately Barrett goes down, and Thoros of Myr comes and prays over him, and you know, that happens, and we're all starting to see him come back to life again. But Arya's not having that, man. Maisie is amazing. I'm so glad I got to meet her, because, you know, for those of you who don't know, that picture of Maisie on my wall, which you may or may not be able to see right now, was signed by Maisie, and she's gotten more and more amazing at playing Arya. Like, she was so good, just wanted to grab that knife and just going for him, trying to kill him, just like, Arya, you just feel so strongly, girl. Like, finally I got to see a little bit of her, because they cut a lot of her more violent, homicidal tendencies before, so I'm glad they at least show that they said that she can be bloodthirsty and she can be angry. And then immediately after that, Sandor is dismissed without his gold, because the Brotherhood Without Banners needs it. And I love that they took his gold, because I think it's funny, because as good as the Brotherhood Without Banners are, they still need money. They still need your contributions, you know. They're like cool Jehovah's Witnesses. They'll come and look out for you, but like, we need donations and shit. But it's like, it's just that even they are not perfectly good. And they, with Gendry and Arya, with their scene, Gendry said that he's going to stay with the Brotherhood because he can finally have a family here. And Arya's like, well, you can be my family. And Gendry says, you would only be my lady. And I thought it was a really good reminder of just like, you know, like I said in the last video, Arya is still naive, but in a different kind of naivety than what Sansa had. with Arya, she never understood class or class boundaries because she was young and she wasn't institutionalized to understand that stuff. And so she never really sees people as like her equal, everyone's her equal and everything. She doesn't really understand that. And with that comes a sort of ignorance with Gendry. You know, as much as you may think you're a family, he's a bastard. You're one of the heirs to Winterfell. You're a lady. He's nobody. I mean, he doesn't even know who is that Robert is his father. He's a royal bastard, if anything. So there is this kind of disconnect between it. I thought it was a really good, solid scene and very emotional. Like, both of these actors really bring a lot to their characters. I think it just makes it worth watching. And then we get a scene with Beric and Arya in which Beric talks about how many times he's been brought back to life, about 6 times, all different ways. And then Arya has this heartbreaking scene where she's like, can you bring back a man without a head? You know, just once. And it's just like, Arya, I feel for you. Sometimes we forget just how much she's lost because she's just so stone and just set. But she is also just, she's still a kid. She's lost so much and she hasn't had a chance to really grieve about it. I think it's one of the saddest things about Arya's character is that she is being forced to grow up so quickly that she loses so much of what innocence she had left. And then we hop and skip over to River Run, and the Lannister boys that we met maybe 2 episodes ago with Talisa's scene come back, and they are killed by Stark and a few of his men. And Robb is furious about this because it seems they're innocent boys, they were not armed, they were just, you know, prisoners. And because of this kind of idea, it just shows that Robb can't command his soldiers. And as a result, he sentenced Stark to be put to death and the other men who assisted it to be all hung. And one of them replies, I was just watching. And so Robb is like, well, let him be hanged first and let him watch everybody else. It was so hard and going, but you know what? At the same time, I get why Robb had the need to do that. But Kat and Talisa and Edmure all tell him that they shouldn't kill Stark because if they do, that they will lose soldiers, it will hurt their cause. And this is all true, but I think Robb has a sense of duty and right of the fact that if this happens under his watch and treason is not treated as a crime, how people, you know, believe him that he's a strong ruler. And just, I'll get to this at the end of the scene, but then so he decides at the end to behead Stark. And Stark has a great scene because I don't know if it's properly explained, but basically the Starks and the Starks are from the same bloodline. Just they're about cousins. If you were to describe the Starks and the Starks, they're like cousins. Basically their name is a copulation of both their Stark heritage and the place that they live, which is called something, I forget, but I'm sure someone will remind me. And so they are related to the Starks. That's why they call each other kin. That's why they think the whole thing is about kinslaying that he mentioned before, like kill me and be cursed, because they are kin technically, and he is kinslaying, and that just seems a big taboo in Westeros. And I think it was really strong how, despite him, you know, feeling passionately about this and knowing this is the right thing for him to do, he beheads the Stark leader, and he's like trembling afterwards. He's just so distraught. And then afterwards we find out that he has lost a lot of his men because of this incident. And then Talisa goes up to him and says, you know, talks about helping him go, maybe they'll go back to the north and regroup. But he says that if like they go back up north, they're not going to want to come back down here and die because they're going to be home with their wives and with their children. And so Talisa has this kind of rambling about, I don't even know where Winterfell is. I'm just like, oh, whatever. But then Robb has an idea to go and attack Casterly Rock because it's not as well guarded as the other places that they may go to. And the only place we can get this men is from Walder Frey. And can I just say, you really think it's a solid idea, Robb Stark, to go get soldiers from someone that you betrayed? Wow. Wow, just wow. I mean, one of the things that I think is interesting about Game of Thrones is how it shows that the Starks, I think it's kind of going to find when you get to Jaime's speech later on, but the Starks, while they are people who are loved and admired, they're not always the smartest people. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but kind of just like, you know, they view things in a very black and white way. There is honor, dishonor, there is right and there's wrong, and there is no in between. And you see this very, very clearly. And I think that, you know, I don't think they have given, you know, Catelyn her dues in the show, but they're not as smart as the people down in the South, because the Southerners are more used to this kind of political game, but the Northerners are not. I mean, first of all, with the Karstark situation, yes, freeing Jaime was a misfire for Cat because it got rid of one of their biggest hostages. But the other thing that people never bring up, except other Cat fans, is that if Karstark had killed Jaime, that would have been 10 times worse. And if Catelyn hadn't freed Jaime, Jaime would have died, and that would have been a death sentence for her children, one, and two, it just would have looked horrible because it meant that he couldn't organize his troops, and that's always completely ignored. You know, the whole thing with Walder Frey, Cat set that up, and then there's a part in the books that's so great that they never put in, but she said earlier that Robb should have married Marjorie Tyrell. Cat knew it all. Cat knew what would have won it, but they never bring it up, and it's never brought up in the show. But just so you guys know, that was her idea. That Robb should have gotten married to Marjorie Tyrell, because that would have been a perfect match for them. And you know, it'd be great because that way they wouldn't have to ally themselves with Lannisters or Stannis' people, and they would still have a lot of soldiers. It would have been a great political move for the Northerners. And that way we'd have more men, more supplies, you know, better warfare. It would have been the perfect match. Whereas this whole thing in it, and then like even if you did marry with like that's why the whole thing with, you know, Jane Westerling, who is now Talisa, is just so stupid, because she doesn't bring anything to the table. She doesn't bring you men, doesn't bring you soldiers. She's nothing. She really is nothing. And I feel like, you know, even in the books, Robb marries her because he sleeps with her, and out of honor and out of respect. And it's just like, it's not always the smart thing to do, and they don't always have the sense of like knowing how to move and play the political game, because they're not used to that. And in their eyes, the game isn't noble. And I feel like the structure of rules that you would want during times of peace, because they would be great peacetime rulers. But when it was time for this, they would crumble, and they have. And it's sad because they were a great moral ground, but the morality is so black and white that it just can't work. So yeah, that's my little analytical tidbit. Now across the Narrow Sea, we get Jorah and Barristan basically talking about how amazing Dany is, and how Barristan is finally happy to serve someone he actually truly believes in. And Jorah's kind of fishing around to make sure that, see, like, so Barristan, did you not betray Dany? Because if you do, I gotta get rid of you. But if you don't, we could be cool. And Jorah's just kind of like playing around to see what Barristan wants. And Barristan's kind of like, you know, you should probably leave later on because you're a traitor, and if you come in with Dany, it'll look suspect. And then Jorah's like, I've been here the whole time. You've been in King's Landing trying to help people who were horrible kings, so maybe you should fuck off. So it's kind of like back and forth repertoire between them. Meanwhile, Dany can give a fuck about either of them, and she's talking with the Unsullied about them having to pick a leader for themselves, and they pick a young man named Grey Worm. And she questions about their names, and Missandei tells her that they are given the names of vermin so that they remember their position. And Daenerys says that they can choose their own names, and Grey Worm decides that he's going to pick the name that he had when Dany freed them all, because that was what's important, not his cursed name. And I won't get too political with this because I know that it's going to get too serious, but I will say that Dany reminds me a lot of She. She is a character from, well, let me see if I can find it. She is a character from this book by H. Rider Haggard. He's also the person who wrote, whatchamacallit, King Solomon's Mines. She is Daenerys is a lot like She, and there's a lot of very mighty whitey tropes with her character that, like, become more blatant, because like the only time we ever get to see minorities is when we go to Dany Starlight, and all of them are either serving her, or she's a savage compared to her, or, you know, others compared to her. It's kind of like, I wish that they had kept some of the other non-white characters in King's Landing that were there, because then it would be a good balance, and it wouldn't be as bad. But because there isn't a lot of other other ethnic groups in this book, in this series, every time you see Dany with these kind of like droves of like brown people that are like following her and treat her as this savior type character, and she is basically as white can get, it just is very kind of like, okay. And also just you know, Martin is American, so he of course knows the whole slavery thing, and there are parallels between the whole name things in our own society that I won't get all into. But I just thought it was just good food for thought for people who might not have noticed it. But beyond the political act, I believe in Dany, and I think that it's a good thing to show us as viewers, because it shows us why people are going to follow her and what makes her a great ruler. Because, you know, I don't think anyone got people to follow them that fast besides just on principle. She earned the respect and love of these people, and she has to keep earning it to be seen as a strong ruler. And I feel like even though she is entitled, she at least tries to live up to that entitlement by protecting them, by taking care of them. She feels as a responsibility to these people, and I think that's what makes Dany a good character in spite of like the kind of like problematic things in her arc, because she does mean well, and she does herself see those issues. And I feel like later on, the storyline will play with this more about the mighty thing and kind of subverting it. But right now it's played fairly straight. But despite that, it's still a really strong storyline because Dany's such a really interesting character that it works. Now we get over to King's Landing, and we get a scene where we get Cersei and Peter Baelish talking about the Tyrell problem and trying to figure out what their plan is. So Littlefinger finally does something actually conniving and gets a young man named Oliver to seduce Loras Tyrell. And we get some ass and peen, so thank you very much, Littlefinger. The ladies are very appreciative of that. And Loras blurts out that he's engaged to marry Sansa and they're planning on marrying Sansa. We were just kind of like, I didn't like this scene for a few reasons. I mean, the one thing about Loras not mourning Renly has always been kind of upset, because people talk about, like, just because Loras is sleeping with somebody else doesn't mean he isn't mourning Renly or that he doesn't care about Renly. But I always felt like we never got to see Renly and Loras' relationship really be romantic. I mean, one great scene of them mourning each other was cut out, so we never see, you know, Loras truly be mournful longer. We see Brienne more traumatized by Renly's death than Loras, and so I felt like, I don't mind seeing with somebody else. I wish it had been balanced out by having more of Renly and Loras being romantic, being in love, and having their own thing together. And the fact that he just blurts it out, just kind of like, he's not that stupid to just think that, but he does, and Littlefinger finds out about what's going on with their plan. And so he goes to talk to Sansa, because he's like, you know, I'm getting ready to leave, so you want to come with me, we can get the out of here. And Sansa's like, you know, it's dangerous for you because, like, I don't want you to get hurt. And obviously, because now she might marry Loras, she wants to stay and wait it out for this whole thing to go on. And what I think is interesting about this, again, like I said in my last video, Sansa hasn't really been, like, an authoritative part of her own storyline. So it's just kind of like, it's more frustrating because, like, she was never proactive in the show, how they set it up. She has an opportunity, and now she's kind of like, well, whatever, fuck it. I feel like if you, in the books, it was more reasonable of why she's like, okay, nah, I guess I'll do this. I'll not go with this first plan. I won't get into it, I'll say that for a different video, but yeah. So she just says no. Littlefinger pretty much figures that something's gone wrong. And then we get a scene with Tyrion and Lady Olenna talking about how much this royal wedding is going to be and how expensive it is. And Lady Olenna's like, look, I know how much money I have given you people. I have given you men, food, supplies, everything. I know how much this thing costs. Don't fuck with me. And then she, in the end, even still offers to pay half because she's just sad. She just wants to let everyone know, look, I'm in charge, not you. Get your shit together, then come at me because right now you owe me. So, you. And I love Lady Olenna. She has been killing it. Diane Rick has been amazing playing this role. Her and Marjorie have just been stealing my heart and breaths, and it's just, they're amazing, and I just love their dynamic. And finally, someone on Tyrion's level is talking to Tyrion. It's like, it's awesome to see those kind of scenes because a lot of time he's playing off people who are seen as lesser than him. So to see him with an equal, it's just like, yeah, get it, girl. Especially since it's a woman and an older woman. It's like, yes, power. And then finally, we get this scene where Tywin has both Cersei and Tyrion together. And can I just say, Tyrion and Cersei, I love seeing them together because they are such siblings. Even though they hate each other, they seem like siblings who hate each other. That they know each other. They know what ticks each other off. They just work well together. I think the actors just have a great sibling chemistry towards each other. I love them. I love them together. Like her little smirk to him, like, hey, you're in trouble with Dad. Ha 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 ha. It's like I see that as so real to me. And I just think it's a testament to how good that they are playing these roles. And then Tywin tells Tyrion that he's going to marry Sansa Stark. And Tywin tells Tyrion that he's going to marry Sansa Stark. And Tyrion's like, that's horrible. Why would you want to do that to this poor girl? And Cersei's like, oh, whatever. But then Tywin's like, you have to marry Loras Tyrell. And she, like, freaks out. And I know people are saying that, like, it's good for Cersei. Like, on the one hand, you know, I do... Seeing Cersei get her comeuppance is entertaining on this fact that because, she does sometimes deserve to get told. But at the same time, I also do pity her because for her marriage to Robert was marital rape for her. He abused her, and in her mind, she views their relationship as a rape relationship. So in that sense, I do pity her because it's obvious that she was not happy in her marriage, and she was never really wanted in this marriage before, and now it's going to be just doubled. And so in that sense I feel bad for her, but at the same time it's like a balanced bad. I do feel bad for her because because marital rape is a real thing and it's sad that she was put in that position. She's going to put it again, she's going to lose all of her power. But at the same time, I also do like seeing her get shot back down for her ableism towards Tyrion. Because two wrongs don't make a right, you know. And then finally, my favorite scene of the episode, Jaime in the bathtub scene. Okay. I love Jaime. Alright, first of all, okay, he gets his thing cut off by, he gets trolled by Roose Bolton, whatevs. Then he gets the whole scene with Qyburn, which was intense, and he totally got like a pain Woody from that. But anyway, the scene in the bathtub with Brienne. Yes, it was everything I dreamed of. I love Jaime Lannister. Like, he became one of my favorite characters because of this whole storyline. And you know it because you watched the episode, so I'm not going to get into the specifics of it. But what I love about this story is how it shows about how the ideas of honor are just such bullshit when it comes down to it. Because what is honor? Is it honorable to protect a man just because you made vows, even though he'll kill and murder billions of hundreds of thousands of people just because you have made some rules and made some vows? And just how it's like, Jaime's a hero. Jaime saved an entire city. Jaime saved thousands of lives. He killed a horrible man. But he's always going to be known as a traitor, a kingslayer, a craven, a horrible person because of vows, because of honor, you know? And like, the aging is different, but at the time when he did this, when he killed him, he was 17 years old. He was a teenage boy who saved an entire city and villainized for it ever since. And if anyone else had killed, you know, the Mad King, it would have been fine. But because of vows, because of honor, he's a craven. It's so wonderful because it's like, it's something that you never really get talked about because, you know, what he's about Ned Stark is too, Ned doesn't care. You were getting ready to kill the king yourselves, but because he was supposed to protect him and he didn't, that's the horrible thing. And it's so complicated, and I love it because Jaime, he never got to be free. He just did it. He did what he thought was the right thing. He had heard women being raped, people being murdered all around him, and he did nothing. And he finally stood up and he saved an entire realm. And he's been shitting on ever since. And it's so painful and so sad. I mean, not to say that I think that it excuses everything he does, because he's still a dickhead. But I think that Jaime's such a complex character because he is always fighting this thing about doing the right thing and doing the noble thing. And how sometimes it's not the same, and sometimes it doesn't link up. And I feel like they touched on that in season 1, and it's been growing ever since then. And Jaime's just the perfect way of telling this story. It was perfectly done, perfectly written, perfectly acted. It was amazing. It's the best that Game of Thrones can do when it does it right. Just amazing, complex themes and motives and character development. It was a thematic orgy of just amazing balls, and I loved it. And I can't wait to see more of Brienne and Jaime because it's been the best parts of this season. Alright, my battery's dying. Thank you for waiting for these videos. I apologize. It won't happen again because I'm done with college.